Okay. Hello, welcome to Fossil Creek Tree Farm and Nursery and Landscaping. I'm Max. I'll be the garden coach today. We're going to redo our presentation on shade plants because yesterday we kind of had connection problems. Today we're going to rush through a bunch of plants. So we're going to have, I guess, 4 categories: shrubs, perennials, annuals, and tropicals. We'll start off with the shrubs. These are hardy, they stay outside, and they're evergreen. So we have some real standouts for shade. First of all, Akuba. It looks tropical, but it tolerates heat and cold. If it gets real cold, it'll wilt a little bit. When it warms up, pops right back up. This one will do 3 to 5 feet. Really brightens up the shade. Low water use. And then we have what I
customer would like to look at red oaks, please.
Let me turn off my radio. We have a couple of yews here, and they are what I call universal plants, because I can show some plants that I think are gorgeous, and then a person says, well, I don't like that. Whereas yews, it seems like everybody loves the color and texture of them. And of course, this is densiformis. That's a 3 foot tall, maybe up to 4 or 5, but goes sideways. So that's kind of a dwarf. And then this is an upright yew. This guy can go 10 feet or more, stays narrow, same kind of color and texture. Of course, these are also low water use, extremely cold hardy evergreens. They'll take a lot more cold than we'll ever get. And basically, you're virtually never going to have to prune them. So they're easy care in that regard. And of course, a warning, you may read tags on plants and it may say sun to park shade. Well, that's true here until July shows up. And shade and sun, those are relative things. The rest of the year, when we have full sun, it's full sun. But when we get to July, August, and September, that's kind of Death Valley full sun. So these will be fine in sun until July shows up, and then they would scorch. So morning sun or late evening sun, they would cope with that in the hottest part of the year. But they will easily cope with shade. They're not real fast growers either, so you're not gonna, like I said, basically you're not ever gonna prune them anyway, but really neat appearance. And of course, dark green is a neat backdrop for any other color things that you would have around them. And of course, this is a camellia. Of course, all different colors of blooms. They don't do blue and purple and those kind of things, but white, pink, red, very attractive blooms. And this is a bright red one. That's a royal velvet, and gorgeous foliage too. Even if they didn't bloom, really attractive shrub. And those, the different varieties are going to be different sizes. Some of them get pretty big, others are relatively dwarf. This is ginger, variegated. That one is kind of hardy here, not an absolute dependable one. It may need protection if we get extremely cold, or if you have it in a microclimate that gives it some protection. Really pretty, lightens up the shade. Of course, the big guy of the group, Japanese Aurelia. That one will get, it can do 5 or 6 feet. Really big, bold foliage, evergreen. It's kind of like the Akuba. If it got real cold, it'll wilt a little bit. When it warms up, perks right back up, but makes a really bold statement, gives kind of tropical appearance. And our guy down front, that's a variegated Finca Major, which will do part sun or shade. And super color would be a neat thing to incorporate into a big mixed pot. And this guy, we'll go through some of these names just for fun. That's a Wojo's Gym. I'm not responsible for these names, but I like them. Very colorful and trails quite a bit. Next, we'll do perennials, and these are some super neat plants. And most of these are evergreen, not all of them. Of course, the neat thing about perennials is that they will be good the first year, but the second year, after they've had a fall and a winter with their roots in the ground, our soil here not only doesn't freeze, it doesn't really get cold, so the roots continue to grow and establish the plant in the fall and winter. So when it comes out the following spring, it's you can see that during the winter they then bust a move. They are big and bold, much more so than the first year. So my reaction is, want to see that again? No, we don't have time. Okay, but anyway, this is one of the favorite herbaceous types. It'll disappear in the winter, freeze to the ground. The hostas, and they come in assorted sizes and leaf colors. Forgot the little guy over there. And of course, the different leaf sizes and shapes will be different sized plants. Obviously, the little dinky leaves won't get to be as big a plant as the big bold leaves, although they will, thicken up and get wide. And since we've mentioned wide, here we are with leopard plants. And these guys are just too cool. This is the spotted leopard plant. It's an evergreen. It's cold hardy. As far as zone 7, we're zone 8. The smaller the number, the colder it gets. So they're dependably hardy here. This is the spotted leopard plant. Gets about 2 feet by 2 feet. It'll have a little spikes with little daisy yellow blooms in the late fall. Mine that I have at home, it decided to start blooming this past year about the middle of December. So it was in full bloom at Christmas time. And this is the giant leopard plant. Botanical name on these is Farfugium. And this one will get about 3 feet by 3 feet. Both of those make excellent container plants. And here we have an Aspidistra or cast iron plant. This one is a dwarf, and it's also got a neat name, Tiny Tank, and kind of speaks to the toughness of these guys. They're drought tolerant. Full shade is fine. They'll take some sun, just not real intense hot sun. And this one, the dwarf one, tends to be thicker and more full foliage than the full size, but it'll still get about 1.5 foot tall evergreen. And this one could be, he is versatile because he's so tough. So he could be in the ground, he could be in a pot, or this one will actually cope as a house plant. So a very tough plant, and of course, like the yews, the dark green makes a neat backdrop for any color things that you wanted to plant around it. Here's his cousin, This is another cast iron plant. This one is a Milky Way, and I don't know if it comes through, but it's a dwarf too. It's got the little spots of kind of a yellowish white on it, hence the name Milky Way. But another super tough. Beds in the shade, mixed pots. And this is Linton Rose, and of course they're a perennial evergreen and bloom in the shade, and they will bloom when pretty much not much else is blooming. December, January, February. Neat, tough plant. Holly fern, another evergreen perennial fern. This will make a clump about 3 foot by 3 foot. Very tough, neat, glossy leaves. And a couple ferns here. Autumn fern, which a winter like we just had, it would be evergreen. A real harsh winter, it would probably still be semi-evergreen, but that's about a 2 foot by 2 foot. New growth is kind of a bronzy color. And then southern wood fern, that one will get about 3 feet tall and spread. It will do full shade, but also it's probably the most sun tolerant of all ferns. It could go so far as to take full sun as long as it had adequate water. Most plants, that's kind of a standard thing. The more sun they're in, the more water they're going to need. Bring some other guys up. I told you there was going to be some plant juggling. Thought I had another one of these, but these are heuchera or coral bells is the common name. Come in a bunch of different colors. They will take shade or morning sun, late evening sun. In fact, except for the hottest part of the summer, they would probably cope with full sun. They like good drainage, moderate moisture, and they do send up little bloom spikes of little flowers, that little bitty flowers on stems. Hummingbirds like them. And evergreen, so they would also be a neat kind of thing to put in a mixed pot. They're not going to overpower their neighbors. And then for a different texture, giant liriope. That variety, they'll get about 2 feet tall. Of course, the old standby mondo or monkey grass get about a foot tall. Neat dark color, different texture. Evergreen, tough plant. And creeping jenny. That one, it'll only get an inch or two tall and spreads out. It's evergreen and shades fine. Also makes a neat companion plant in a mixed container. Go over the side and down. If it spreads in a flower bed where the stems touch the ground, they root, so it'll make a neat light green mat which will set off the things around them. But very tough and dependable. We've got any other? Some others, elephant ears. Most of them are perennial. They'll die to the ground in the winter, but super neat assortment of foliage. Of course, these neat light green with the dark stems, really a standout. This one is mojito. Got black in the leaves. As the leaves get bigger, they can get some pretty large. Instead of just speckle black, you can have some large patches of black, which are really kind of give it that exotic look. And then if you want to feel like you're in the deep dark jungle, this one, let me get my eyeballs up. See what the variety is. Yucatan Princess. Well, I couldn't argue with that. Really neat. No plants are hurt in this. They may not be completely comfortable, but they're not hurt. So we've done shrubs and perennials. And now we'll do annuals. And then we'll finish up with tropicals. Don't be alarmed, that's only my alarm to keep me on pace. One of the old standbys that's been around forever, copper plants. And copper plants are another one of those that really neat colors of foliage, and they will actually adapt to full sun or full shade. The more sun they're in, it'll heighten the colors, but they'll cope quite well with full shade. Get about 2 feet tall. It wouldn't be shade without some caladiums. Got different types. This is a strap leaf or a smaller leaf and a shorter plant. And those will, the bloom is nothing, but the foliage is really great. It can be used in flower beds or in mixed pots to great effect. Good assortment of colors. And just a note that when you're doing caladiums or perennials, for that matter, just about anything, for best impact, nice to have a group. You know, if you stick one out there, he can look kind of lonely. You put a group together, either in a flower bed or in a pot, and it looks substantial. I don't want them to look too lonely. Of course, for shade, coleus is another outstanding group of plants. Super neat color assortment. If you can't find a coleus with colors you like, you need to keep looking. You will. And of course they have neat names, which a lot of times they're not a real big surprise. Like this one is lime sun or electric lime, and of course there's a variety that's, most of the coleus now are sun coleus. Years and years ago, most of them were for shade. One of the one that's series that's out there that is a shade type is the one called Kong, as in King Kong. Super big leaves, but those can take a little morning sun or evening sun, but for the most part shade. Big bold foliage, neat colors. But a lot of them nowadays are sun coleus, like this one. Neat color, kind of reminiscent of the Marguerite potato vine, the chartreuse color, fingered edges. That one's wasabi. new one this year. Let's see. Instead of guessing the name, let me see. That's a big blonde with a little faint line down the middle of the leaf, really neat. And of course most of these sun coleus, they will get probably 2 feet tall, 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet wide. So a bedding plant that'll be substantial. They grow pretty fast, and if you put them in a big pot, mixed pot, you're probably going to want them to be around the middle, and you may have to trim them with scissors over time to keep them from crowding out their companions. And it wouldn't be shade without impatience. Need assortment of colors. Of course, this is potato vine. This one's the ace of spades, dark color, orange. Really, they set each other off. Of course, white goes with anything. Good assortment there. Along with the other natural for shade in the bedding plants is wax begonias. This is a green leaf white, which is a shade, very little sun, and the bronze leaf begonias are the ones for sun. Kind of like people. If you're in a lot of sun, you're going to get a tan. If you see them on the table, the bronze leaf, the dark leaves, they're for sun. The green leaf, they're for shade. White or pink. If you want to do red in the green leaf, you kind of have a choice. If they're in a lot of shade, the leaves will remain light green. They'll bloom just fine. If you put them in more sun, as you can see, the leaves here are kind of turning somewhat red. If they're in a lot of sun, they'll still work and bloom, but the leaves will become almost as red as the blooms, but they'll cope with it. And of course, the begonias, each little plant, they'll get about the size of a volleyball, maybe a basketball. So you can kind of keep that in mind as far as spacing is concerned. They get to be a pretty good sized plant. And I don't want to confuse anybody about potato vine. They love full sun. They love the heat. It can't get too hot or too sunny for them. They also like water. They like to be kind of on the moist side. But since they're not really having to produce a bloom, they will also work in shade and provide, neat contrasting colors. Of course, this is Marguerite, the chartreuse color. This is tricolor. It's got a lighter green leaf with some white and pink in it. And of course, those are extremely vigorous, good for ground cover in a bed or at the edge of a mixed pot, or even in done frequently in hanging baskets. We have some more. It's another Kong variety of coleus, and this one looks like a coleus, but it's a perilla named Magilla perilla. It'll get 2 feet or more, tolerates sun or shade. Of course, More begonias. These are similar to the wax begonias, but they're varieties that get much taller, have bigger leaves. Neat colors. Another coleus variety, Salsa Rojo. It's a stained glass variety. And then, of course, with numerous New Guinea impatiens, colors, type of impatiens, probably tougher than just the regular impatiens. Let me see where I'm at. If I'm, oh, not long to go. Pull that one out. Just mention a few. Of course, there's just a regular wax begonia in a bigger pot to show you they'll get to be a good sized plant. T-5. And of course, outside in the shade of the patio, you can also do tropical plants. Crotons will do sun or shade. Tropical plant, they will, I know from experience that even in shade, they keep good leaf color. And this is one we just got in, the Crossandra. So if you looked at the orange Esperanza and thought, well, I want that color, but I want it in shade, Esperanza won't do it, but Crossandra will bloom quite well in the shade. Syngonium or arrowhead plant, got them in the white or mauve. Neat shade plant, can be used kind of like you would a caladium. Prayer plant, one of my favorites. It's used as an interior plant, but outside on the shaded patio, be a neat thing. It'll stand by spider plant or airplane plant. What?
Louder.
Oh, okay. And just a curiosity, you know, this is a Pilea, just a neat, cute foliage little plant. And then I think we'll wrap it up just about with this guy. Staghorn fern. There are some plants that might have as much cool. None of them have any more cool. You may have seen these done on a plaque. And this brown here, that's not because he's having trouble. That's what he covers his root area with. So he'll develop more of those as he gets older. But neat plant. Here's almost missed them. Tender type perennial foxtail fern is a neat one. This is the first year we've had this one, kind of related to that. This is a Ming fern. They can get 4 or 5 feet tall. Almost give you an instant bonsai or Asian kind of look. Super neat. And of course you can do, almost missed these guys, but variegated English ivy or Algerian ivy, cold tolerant, do well in the shade. Just another variety of begonia for shade. But these are neat in a hanging basket or a mixed pot. You don't have to worry about protecting them in the winter. I think we've touched just about everybody. One last little fern. This one's called Jester. And that's because, like a jester's hat, his fronds kind of go in every different direction. He's not winter hardy, but can be done in a pot on the patio and brought in for the winter. And I think that about covers them.
Can you show up the prayer plant one more time?
I can. This one also comes, we've also got one out there that's a little softer looking called a rabbit's foot fern. And this one, it also comes in a red variety where instead of the white stripes, it's got red stripes on the leaf. I think we got those in and sold them out immediately. So, but this one is really, really appealing. And that'll do it for now. Thanks for coming.